All right. Well, I am with Matt Whitlock. Welcome, Matt. It's good to see you, mate.
Take
A
care.
little bit of an intro. So Matt is married to Mina, and you've got two children, don't you? Sailor and Xander. Yeah, Xander. How old are they now?
Selah is 8. Xander. Oh, Selah's 9 and Xander's 8.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Because they're about the same. They're around Aurora's age, my
Yes.
8-year-old.
Yep.
So, and you're the teaching pastor at Capo Beach Church in Dana
Yes.
Point, which
Yep.
is in SoCal. How do you say that? SoCal?
SoCal, SoCal, and then we're in an area they call South Orange County.
Yeah, okay. I remember once you text that to me, SoCal, and I was like, what is that? I've never heard of that. But now I know, I've learned. And you also were with YWAM for about 20 plus years, and that's kind of your background training. I'd love to hear a bit about that. You're one of the Lauren Cunningham's key guys. And we met a few years ago through mutual friends at His Story Church in Sydney, and then you came down to Melbourne, must have been a year later or something, and were with us for a prophetic summit and shared your message around lifestyle missionary message, which was awesome. And it's still, has had such a big impact on people, and a lot of people remember that message. I think it really hit, right where it's at, probably in Aussie culture too. Like that's probably the key way to reach people, is that personal evangelism every day. You're a missionary to your friends and family, and which is great. So, and then you've also we've also hung out in Hawaii, where I will never forget the few days we spent together in Kona. I know for you, jumping off rocks and surfing and Hawaii is like second nature, but during this COVID time, I've thought back many times.
I bet.
To Kona, I'm like, I wish I was there right now. So,
that's awesome.
Oh, so good. So tell us a bit about you were in YWAM for a long time. I know last time we spoke, you just got to America. You were settling in as a teaching pastor at Capo Beach, and I think when I visited you, it was probably a year almost to the day. It was
spring. It was spring.
Yeah, when we had come to America last year, and you had just settled at Capo Beach, and it was pretty different because I think you were saying to me at the time, it was the longest you'd been in one spot your whole life, and you'd only been there for like 3 months or something. So how's it going?
Good. It was a big adjustment. I think, I was, I guess the term today would be fathered by a very global thinker, Lauren Cunningham, for about 2 decades, him and his wife. And so I only knew how to think in light of the world. And so, meetings after meetings, sitting around maps and atlases, and then eventually, computers, and then eventually iPhones and iPads. We just would pray over nations and strategize over nations, and spending time with someone who had been to those places, and stories of meeting with repeatedly different leaders of those nations. And so, and then going out, and door to door, refugee camps, cleaning toilets, building homes, you name it, whatever the needs were, to do our best to incarnate the good news of Jesus. I did that for years. And so when I got to a place where I felt that a change was coming, and I felt that God was saying that this way of living was going to be different, I had no idea that I'd be doing what I was doing now. We initially thought that we would just take our ministry and move it outside of YWAM, and kind of try our best to be more local with it. That was the idea. So my family and I were looking at different parts of the world to do that in, and ironically, California was the spot. Now, I didn't grow up here. I grew up in New York. Mina was born in LA, but raised in Seattle. So we never we had spent some time here years ago, but we never put roots into this area.
Yeah.
So it's kind of well, that's weird. I don't know how this is going to work. Move out there. We had several of our staff wanting to move with us. And then we got here, and, God had something different for us. And we did the same stuff, but not in the same capacity, because a church that I had been visiting and teaching over the years came to me and said, "Hey, Matt, we're at a stage in our church's life where we really want someone to take over the teaching, and within that, kind of the vision for where we're going, within team, not in isolation." And we just really feel like it'd be you. And I
Yeah.
just had never thought in my life that I would do anything that present in the local church.
Yeah.
And
are you concerned that you'd have to wear a tie or something like that?
no, I think for me it was just like, I think it was, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the politics of that church can have, the red tape that church can have. You know, I think it was all of that. And sometimes, you know, I was getting the chance to work with like the most extreme, if you were to put YWAM even in church, it was the most extreme Christian, committed Christian that we dealt with in YWAM. It was like the person that was willing to move their whole family across the world because God spoke to them. So, and then all the people in YWAM were like that. So, but really that's like maybe like 3% of anyone's church, you know, like typically 5% of everyone's church. So they go, you mean I'm going to now fellowship with people that, a lot of people that maybe have the capacity to think globally, maybe don't have the desire to, don't want to, and see maybe church as a place to be served, not to be of service. Was like, ooh, I don't know how I could do that. I don't know if I'm wired that way, where I have friends that are very pastoral that are very wired that way. So all those things, but I just had they called me, and then me and I prayed about it, and I just had like a real like this is it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like how is this going to work? But I just felt God say, this is it. And I realized it was a privilege too, you know, because he could have called me to church plant, and that could have taken years, you know, and it's like, instead he's like, no, I got an instant platform with people wanting to hear me, which is, you know, pretty cool. So it was,
what does it look like being a teaching pastor? Because I think,
that would be good to clarify, because I know it's a different concept.
Yeah, like for me, I haven't come across it a lot, and I don't really hear about it in Australia much. We're like so small, and we're not as developed in the church scene as well. So, you know, what is that like? Do you just like read the Bible every day? And
I mean, I have it really good. I really have it really good. Yeah. So basically I think some churches that get to a certain size, and a church that's older will do this. So I think it has to be a certain size and along a certain period of length and time. So our church is about 43 years old. Yeah. And the numbers are different, but I would say on a Saturday and Sunday, we average about 1,500. Yeah. They would say that we're much larger than that because Californians only go to church like once or twice a month. Yeah. But that's kind of like our average. So what a lot of churches do is they split up the roles. So instead of like where the senior pastor is the teacher, the administrator, fundraising, over the staff, driving everything, a lot of churches will split that up and say, okay, well, we'll have an executive pastor. So technically my role, there's a lead pastor, and then my technical term is lead teaching pastor. Okay. So we both share the same role. We share the lead pastor role together. So now on paper that looks different, but that's kind of how we work together. We would never like, his name's Craig, and we would never work, and we'd always work together. And he's basically a generation older than me. Yeah. So how it works is that I get the chance to speak into everything that would be administrative, and pick up lifting when I need to, with staff and any type of fundraising, any type of facilities management, any kind of stuff. I can speak into it, create future direction in it, and be a part of it, but it's not my job. Yeah, yeah. In the same respect, he can come over and sit in my office and go, hey, this is what I'm hearing from people. What if we did something like this? What if we did something like that? What do you think of like this? But it's not his job. Yeah. So that's kind of how we work together. It's a cool model. Yeah, I think it's a real good model. It's a good model for a couple of reasons. It keeps me safe. Yeah. I'm not out there on my own. Yeah. I don't have to ever feel like I'm by myself or in isolation. I don't ever have to feel like I'm carrying it on my shoulders. Yeah. It's a good model for him because at 70 years old, he's a part of the future, but he's not having to like stress about what are we teaching, what's the direction. So it's just like, And it's cool that we're different generations, because it's like, that's church. It's multi-generational.
Well, I was reading just this week some stuff by Andy Stanley for North Point Community Church, and he was just saying he actually thinks that it's kind of one of the locks, that if we could pick this lock in the local church of actually separating the leader from the communicator, that you know, and even the leader from the communicator from the, you know, small group facilitator, pastoral one, and actually get more competent people doing those roles, rather than trying to find that one person who's the amazing communicator, the strong leader, and can also do, you know, we're going to be stronger. So it sounds like you're experiencing the benefits of that.
I mean, it's there are a couple of downsides, but they're not downsides. They'd be downsides just because each of us can get lazy. And when you're lazy, you don't want to have to communicate to someone else. You just want to do what pops in your head. Or when you're impatient, you don't want to have to wait for the team. You just want to do what you feel like you need to do. You know, that's a downside, but that's not a healthy downside to church. You know? So there's only benefits. It's just, but you have to have the right mix of people that are truly surrendered. I think the requirement for it to work is the people that do it, whether it's like a team of 2 like myself, or maybe it's a team of 3, they truly have to find their significance only in the fact that they're a child of God. That's the only way. If you are trying to find your significance in your role, if you're trying to find your significance when you do, it can turn into a hot mess really quick, because someone's always going to feel like they're not getting the credit they deserve. They're not getting the appreciation that they should have. They're not getting the, enough accolades or the respect. But if everyone's coming in going, I'm a broken child of God, you're a broken child of God, we're learning to walk in our new creation, and God's called us to care for his church, not our church. Then I think it really works.
It's good.
As the gift sets work together. Now that's how it's working now. Is it going to keep going like that for a number of years? I'm sure we'll have to think through things a little bit different. I know the gentleman that I work with is at a stage in life where he's like, I don't know if I want to keep showing up as much. So my thing with him is like, well, as long as your heart's beating, you can sit in the front row. And so it's a matter of just maybe shifting of some roles, pivoting on that. But we need to have those that have gone before us that haven't yet left us still present, because it just brings security to the whole congregation. And we're getting the benefit of that right now in a time when everyone's losing their job and giving should be tanking. Our giving is not. It's because the older generation of our church feels honored and valuable and involved, and they're the ones that are really carrying us right now, while a lot of our givers are furloughed and can't give anything right now.
So coming from that kind of YWAM, Frontlines, going to nations, coming into a pretty standard, a big church, but a standard local church doing their local thing, like what have you found maybe the best about that, and what have you found the most difficult or challenging about that move?
So I think the best about it is the people that in YWAM, the people that we were traveling around the world trying to find, I found them all, because they were just sitting in churches already. So you have all these parachurch ministries that talk about changing culture, discipling nations. They're talking about transformation. They're talking about revival. There's all these side ministries that have started to supplement church, but you just got to get into church, and the people are sitting right there. Bankers, VPs, execs, business owners, moms, dads, grandpas, auto mechanics, blue collar, white. I mean, you name it, they're all there waiting for the message that these churches are going around thinking they're going to find some other people to talk to about it. So I think for me, rolling up was like, oh my gosh, like the wealth of influence in all the cities around us sitting in my church was overwhelming, because I thought I would have just wanted one of my YWAM students to go end up like one of these guys, and I got 100 of them, all doing all different things. Now, again, it's a size thing, so it's not for every church, but for us, we just had a lot. And to be fair, in our area, you don't live in our area unless you're somewhat connected to some type of entrepreneurial work or you're commuting for work. So you probably have people in this space here that are going to be more on the fringe of creativity, things like that, because they're living in an area that you can't live in this area and work too normal of a job because it's kind of a tough area to be in.
Okay.
Financially,
it's a pretty affluent area.
That can be pretty affluent.
So what's it like having people like that in a church that are affluent, when, you know, affluence often goes with maybe mediocrity, or goes with, you know, comfortable Christian kind of bit of a worldly lifestyle, have a bit of God, you know, have my money, have my kids, you know.
So that would be the one. So that would be the one downside.
Okay.
Is that all those people that have influence aren't sure they want to work extra to leverage it.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that's kind of my thing, you know, getting people to realize church is not meant to be a service to you. You are the church to be a service to our community.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. I just did this because this is good for me. Like, this is my Christian networking place. I tithe and get to see cool things happen. And outside of that, other than that 60 minutes in church on Sunday, I'm not sure you would even recognize Christ in my life the rest of the week.
Yeah.
You know? And so that was the one downside. Like, okay, well, these people all have influence, but it looks like not many of them are really desiring to use it or allow God to use it to advance his kingdom.
Yeah.
And so that's a bit of the like downside. The other downside is just the area we live in weather-wise is amazing. That's why people move here. Weather's good all year. Not super hot summers, not super cold winters, yet you can be at the mountains in the winter in under an hour and a half. You can surf and snowboard the same exact day, which means sports are all year long. You know, everything is 4 seasons. Everything's 4 seasons. So that means that people are like, churches like competing with a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's not.
When we were there last year, about this time last year. So what season are you in now?
We're just in spring.
Yeah, so we just got off the plane, like we were so knackered, all over the shop with the time zones. But we just went for a walk to try and get some sunlight down to the local beach, and it's just phenomenal. And there's volleyball courts everywhere, and like it's just crazy beautiful place. And it's about what, an hour and a half or something from like LA.
Yeah, like an hour from LA.
Yeah, so you're not like in the LA suburbs kind of thing. It's like it's this little town kind of feeling, but it's just beautiful. It reminds me a lot of Queensland here in Australia, and like, but you can see it's really wealthy. Like people, I mean, you got people on the streets and whatever, but you know, everything's kind of big, rich, big houses, beautiful streets. You know,
everything is definitely, and the standard is pretty high. I mean, you're not gonna. I mean, I don't know. The real estate's pretty expensive where you are too, but I mean, you're not gonna buy a home. I mean, if you're looking at like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, I don't know what it would translate in square meters, but like maybe 1,700 square foot, which I guess would be like, what would be that, like 500 square meters, maybe. I'm not sure they do real estate there, but you're not going to touch something nice without paying about, I don't know, $800,000.
Yeah.
You know, so it's an interesting area. So there's all that influence, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that goes on here that's not that. Like, we are also a very popular area for recovery. So for people recovering from addictions.
Oh, really?
And mental health. Oh yeah, we are the hot spot of the nation for that.
Wow.
So there's tons of young people that are here, and they're all trying to get their lives together.
Wow.
And thankfully, our church has done a really good job at opening our doors to them. And so on any given Sunday, you know, there's vans and buses dropping loads of young people off.
Wow, that's
who are
awesome.
coming from around the nation to get sober. And so one of the cool things, we're a big part of that in their lives, you know, not only their sobriety, but then growing their spirituality in Christ as well.
That's awesome.
And so connecting those groups. So the benefit is, even though we have an affluent area, the benefit of the church that I'm in is it's done a really good job at trying to do its best that when you walk in those doors, there's level ground at the foot of the cross.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who you are. We're not going to give you any more special treatment than anyone else. So you can be, you know, the owner of some, you know, Dutch Boys coffee, and you're going to sit right next to a kid that just got clean 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that's just how we roll. And we're not going to like build anyone up more than anyone else, you know?
Yeah. That's a great culture.
So they've been able to, they have. And so for me coming in was, okay, how can I build into that more?
Yeah.
And bring the messages that are in my heart, which is use what you have for influence.
Yeah.
How can we start doing that? So I started doing that immediately.
Yeah.
And it was well received.
So imagine the challenge for you in the preaching would be turning what's great ingredients, probably fairly mature Christians that are pretty committed, but you need to turn them into people of action that are probably willing to do more, get involved a bit more, maybe adjust their lifestyles a bit more to let God flow through.
Yeah, teaching. I was very different then. So for about a year, no, I'm sorry, it was about 2 years before I came, I was commuting through and teaching sometimes as much as once a month.
Yeah.
And my friend Sean was kind of facilitating. He was doing about 60% teaching, and then I would do like 20, and then another guy would do 20.
Yeah.
And he was a bit younger than me, probably about 10 years younger than me. He'd only ever worked in a church ministry. So he was actually a youth pastor for years. And then because he grew up in this church, they offered him this opportunity to kind of lead. And he was actually just leading a teaching team.
Yeah.
And I think before I came, the teaching was a bit more, what we might call like vanilla, just kind of, let's go through the fruits of the Spirit again. You know, 'cause you can have these in your life. And I think what I think the American church is dealing with on a whole right now is this idea of like the self-help message of the gospel, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so of course that's just like, I come to church and hear that I can be the best. I hear I can be great. I hear that God accepts everything about me right where I am. Like and that's all true. But let's not forget the message of James too, that, but if there's no outflowing that, do you really believe in what you're saying? You know? So
yeah,
I think, so when I came, it was a bit different, obviously. So my first 2 months, I just hit the lifestyle missionary message right up front. Right. And then I just went hard on stirring them the fact that you guys are consumers of culture, not shaping anything. So then I just started doing a lot of series on how they're not grasping our cultural moment, and how they're just being like blindly led sheep to our culture right now.
Yeah, wow.
And here's what it's producing in your life. And so the first year I just kind of stirred all that. I stirred a lot of that up, you know, things from the Beatitudes to the I am statements of Jesus to going through the book of Colossians, Malachi. I mean, just talking about the prophetic voice and standard of holiness. And so and then making it very reasonable, because I think people really need to know.
Yeah, good.
Reasonable with it too.
Yeah.
But then in my own way, of course, I always saturate everything in humor and fun and all the rest. But I think that really stirred them, like, we need to be like doing stuff. Like, like this, like the church had shaped America. The church, the principles of the Bible is what shaped our nation. And we're allowing now other people to shape our scriptures.
Yeah.
And I think it was timely too, because, you know, Trump's up there every day just shooting off his mouth on Twitter and whatever next thing, and everyone's going, we got to wake up, like something's not right here, you know. I didn't know there was a swamp, but it clearly looks like there might be one, and maybe it's shaped my life more than I want to shape my life, you know. So I think that was a good thing. And I kind of did 2 things. So I have to do my weekends, which weekends we basically make it's an hour. I have about 30 minutes teaching, and then there's like worship and announcements, all that stuff on the other 30 minutes. I typically go more minutes. And then Thursday nights become like my core, like disciples. That's like my midweek. And that usually will average around 250-ish. And the weekends, like I said, about 500. So about those 250, that's like, I get up there and I'll go for 45 minutes to an hour. We'll go deep into text. We'll do conversation. We'll do interviews. That's the group that I did like a 7-week series. And I had my friend, different friends come up, and my friend Brett Kunkel came and did a whole thing on faith and sexuality for one Thursday night. They did, you know, that's the night we do that. I don't make that the weekend. Because the weekend the weekend's more like, hey, this might be your first time back to church in your whole life since you're a kid. And so it's got to be, I want to make it challenging and reasonable and encouraging, but I'm definitely not going to use the weekend as the time to like go deep into something that came out in the media or.
Yeah, it's good. I had a question for you around that. It's good you brought it up because it's definitely something part of the reason I've been reading Andy Stanley is because I've been throwing this around a lot more, I suppose, looking at my own philosophy around church and what it really means. And, you know, so often we can just naturally think that church is Sunday, where obviously the ecclesia is, you know, much more than a service. But how do you kind of do both, I suppose? How do you create space for what you might call a more evangelistic approach where it is open, like you're saying, you've removed obstacles for people? And I think, you know, a lot of the mega churches, part of the reason they're big is because they do this so well. They help people feel comfortable, remove the obstacles so that they can actually get to the truth. You know, they approach with lots of grace, and then at the core is the truth, because, you know, that only the truth can set us free, and you've got to get to that. I think a lot of people maybe misunderstand bigger churches, thinking that they're somehow compromising or they're somehow worldly. Yeah, where they're not. I mean, you read these guys like Andy Stanley, and man, they're as hardcore as anyone. But I think they're just a lot cleverer at bringing in what they would call the unchurched. But then I suppose you got to work out what is Sunday for, because if it's for those people, it is a different message. But if it's for the insiders, then you can preach long and you can go hard and you can do whatever you want. And Christians are incredibly tolerant of bad sermons and long meetings and waffle and poor presentation. We're amazingly patient what people will put up with, you know, when they love God. You know, you wouldn't put up with that at a restaurant or in a movie, but you go to church and sit there for hours through some rubbish sermon and, you know, it's all great. And so, so maybe do you have some thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think for me, you know, we've gotten some criticism in the last couple of years because, you know, take for instance Easter. You know, we go all out for Easter, and we let a lot of the young people decide like how we should do it. And so usually it's like ridiculous amount of lights and loud music and drop curtains and dancers and you know, I'm like, I couldn't care less about that stuff, but there is something to be said about celebrating, you know? So why not go big with something like that and get the chance to kind of show people that, you know, Christ's resurrection is a really big deal to us. So we're going to spend money on celebrating because we want you to remember the fact that he came back from the dead. And that's, you know, life after death now, right? That's our hope. So I think that, so there's been some of that. I think for me, you know, obviously for me, the way I'm wired, I would like shut the doors, grab the most hardcore people, create schools, and start pumping them out. You know, like tell everyone else go somewhere else. You know, I think that's kind of my mentality. You know, I'm like,
the same.
That's just what's in my DNA. That's what I was mentored in for years. But what I've come to realize is that we can't do that because a lot of people just aren't. A lot of people just aren't there, and the people that probably would show up to those classes are people that are really into Christianity, but they're not really helping anybody. Like they're like really committed to grow, but then we're like, do you even have a friend that's not a Christian? Well, no, I'm just all about God. It's like, okay, well, that's not going to work either. So Sunday, what we've done is Sunday is going to be like those hardcore people. We want them serving the whole group then.
Right.
So you're here, you're meeting, you're buying, we're giving you free tickets to get people free coffee and breakfast and sit down with them. You're ushering people. You're like, you are the table setter. You're the hoster. It's loving strangers. You're welcoming them in. And then Thursday, come and we'll go deep. And we have a team night we do as well that we go after it. And so I think right now, I can't speak for Australia, but right now in America, we are looks like we're towing the line with really going post-Christian. You know, I think people say we're already there. I wouldn't say we're all the way there yet. Not as a whole nation, maybe in pockets, but definitely not as a whole nation. Because you obviously have the African-American, Latin, and Asian church that's growing fast. And so they're not, some of those statistics are very white centric, you know? But I would say that if people are coming to a church, I don't care what they're doing on a Sunday, like right now, we got to see that as a win.
Yeah.
I don't like, I think that's where I'm at. Like, they're coming.
Yeah.
So I don't know why, because there's so many things for them to do, but they keep showing up. So let's just make it appropriate for them to come in and hear about Jesus.
Yeah.
So we've had this talk because, I was approached last Christmas by my mom and said, hey, can you talk to my daughter? And her daughter came to me and said, hey, can I talk to you for a second? I'm like, yeah, sure. And as I'm talking to her, we didn't even start talking. This other girl comes like bulldozing through the chairs and just stops the girl from talking, gets right in my face and goes, that's my girlfriend. We're lesbians. Are we welcome in your church? And I right away said, heck yeah, you are. Like, everyone is welcome to learn about Jesus, Like, yes, come every weekend. Please come, Now, am I saying you're going to be a leader? No. Are you going to probably come and hear things that you don't agree with about what I've said? Yes. But if you want to come and learn about Jesus, you got to come. And so at this stage of the game, I feel like there's just not a lot of places that people can come and even learn about God anymore. I think we assume that everyone's learning it. But then when you sit with a really serious Christian and realize they don't even know what they believe, how are anyone else going to?
Yeah.
So for us, it's like, let's make it, I will never water down truth.
Nah.
Like, clear as day. I've been straight up, like, we value human life. I'll tell the bigger story of our value for human dignity, where it comes from. I'm not just going to hammer the abortion, but I'll start with the huge picture and then come down and go, and that's why I'm against abortion.
Yeah.
We value marriage. I'm not just going to say, I don't like gay marriage. I'm going to do the big picture of what marriage is meant for the world, and then to come down to and say, and that's why it's one man and one woman. And does that offend you? It should. It should offend all of us because sin is in our heart, and the gospel is going to offend the sin in our heart. So maybe you're offended about the gay marriage thing, but I'm going to be offended about other things. It is what it is. So I think what I'm realizing is you can have the open doors, celebration, loud music, fun, and you can bring the truth. But I think people are wanting the truth not in the words that they've heard explained to them before.
Yeah.
They're wanting to hear it wrapped in the bigger perspective. And so I feel like a lot of what I do is reminding people what it is from a place in scripture that they haven't heard anymore, like, oh, well, then that makes sense. Like, oh, like bride of Christ, man and woman, like these are all signposts of what God's doing. And like, it clicks different. And so, but the challenge, like anyone, is going, get them to 30 minutes, make it fun. I'm a storyteller, so I naturally can bring people into story. But I used to be like poo-poo on the bigger churches. Now I'm like, we got to get these churches as big as possible. Like, because it also, bigger churches do provide opportunity for people to hide out a little bit at first.
Yeah.
I had a friend that said, if you think of the church as like an aircraft carrier, you have like the top guys calling all shots and making the whole thing work, but don't forget about the guys in the bottom that just peel potatoes,
Yeah.
Well, I'm always like, get the aircraft, you get the army generals, and then eventually it's like, yeah, but some people just can't peel potatoes, and their role is just, if they're not peeling potatoes, those guys aren't eating, and they're not. So it's just, I think for me, it's been learning the different levels of people's involvement.
It's really good. I think it's a little bit similar to some of the thoughts I've been having, and I suppose addressing in myself a little bit, because I'm looking from our Australia context, which is very similar to America, post-Christian. Most people, even a lot of Christians, are very secular in their mindset, understanding of people, culture, politics, what I'm meant to be doing with my life, meaning. But then trying to find that, and another book I've been reading recently is one of Tim Keller's ones, and it's just brilliant stuff. He's such a genius, but he's just talking about what he did in New York with Redeemer, and just really saying that it wasn't the model, because that's a lot of the stuff you read is models or the methods, but he's really saying we just understood, the hearts and minds of New Yorkers, and then we just spoke in a rational way, full of truth, but helping them overcome obstacles in their head that a New Yorker has in their head. And I think that's a big challenge for churches. And I think I've been challenged a lot the last couple of years, not to just preach in a way that I like, but to actually preach in a way that, the audience that I'm preaching to is going to be able to understand Jesus better and grow in their faith. And now I think the next iteration that I'm looking at is not only preaching to the insider audience to help them, but also preaching to outsiders that may be sitting in the congregation? And do we start to use Sunday more as a way, like a funnel, that it's a lot more open? Like you're saying, therefore it's probably going to be shorter. It's probably going to be a bit more jokes and fun, but it's going to funnel down to truth, and then hopefully feeding people into these more discipleship programs, courses, the Thursday night thing. So I like what you're saying, because I think it's not about a model or a style. It's more about what's actually going to help the average Aussie dude who's probably a tradie with tattoos. Could he come to my church, hear something and go, far out, that challenged me, that helped me a bit. I actually might come back next week.
Yes.
You know, and it's not like church is this 2-hour weird thing with all this lingo inside a language I don't understand.
Yes, that's huge.
And then we can still have, I love your Thursday night thing, because, and you know that we've got, you know, some great discipleship stuff and that,
of course.
You know, and we've always had that insider stuff. And I think that that's really important. You don't want to lose that, but you got to have a funnel. You can't just expect people to walk into churches anymore. Your average person doesn't even know that David and Goliath is a biblical story. No. It's just, isn't that a business term? A big company, a little.
And the guy just wrote a book on that. I think that's good. I think we need places of hope and celebration for people in this day and age, you know, and where they can meet real people and real relationships. And so that means, you know, making sure your church, as much as you can, isn't cliquey. You know, for us, one of the things we do is we move the chairs a lot. That prevents people from having their like designated seats all the time. You know, we do a lot. We do probably every quarter. We literally change the format. You think, that's so stupid. Why'd you do that? Well, because now what somebody's chair was once before, it's not their chair anymore.
Yeah.
So it kind of keeps like, and we get feedback on that, but it's like, hey, remember, this is for you, but this is also for everyone else that's coming too.
Yeah.
And if all of a sudden people feel like they're on the outside of something that's going on the inside, then they're not going to be as keen to kind of come by and show up. So then you need to have this, like, we find you have to have this like good balance of like connection to people when they come in, but not like smothering the people. You know, and that's another thing that we're trying to work on, you know, and that's why, like, one of the things I'm really passionate about right now is, you know, making us more multi-ethnic. And we are genuinely probably one of the most multi-ethnic churches in our area. Like, of all the Black people that go to church in the area, they mostly all of them come to our church. We have several Asians starting to come, and Hispanic are starting to come, probably because I'm Puerto Rican, Italian, Nina's Korean, so they're seeing that face. So it's like, I'm safe here. But I have a guy, again, you know, I meet these people at my church, and he got his doctorate from Harvard, teaches at teaches at USC and the religion department. Brilliant guy. But he said he's Latino American, and I was telling him, like, hey, I really want to get more Latinos here. He goes, yeah, but you have a lot of whites only signs around here. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's no sign that says white only, you know? And he goes, all your greeters are white. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he goes, all of the stuff that you advertise on the walls, only white people do this stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. And I didn't even realize.
What kind of advertisements?
Well, just things like, just by not having anything in bilingual for us. Like, nothing was even mentioned about it. None of our terms for anything are similar to Spanish, or like there's no there's nothing that you'd walk in as a Latino and be like I'm welcome here. Anyway, all white people would, even probably African Americans would, but not Latino. And that's a problem because we're an hour and a half from the border of Mexico, and the majority of our population in this area is Latino. We can choose to accept it or not, but that's the majority of them.
You didn't even see that.
No, I never even thought that before.
Isn't that amazing?
White only signs. I'm like, I don't even know. Now, he is a smart guy, and he counsels political campaigns, so it's not like I'm a total dummy, you know. Like, he was a smart guy. So he's helping us now, like, think through everything that we do, so that we're not sending out these white only signs.
Yeah.
So you always want to so then I was thinking, well, are we sending out any like serious Christian only signs? Like, are we not taking the time to properly explain things that we're announcing? Because we have this assumption that everyone already knows what a women's Bible study is. Or do we need to like back it up and go, hey, we're really excited that like all of our women get the chance to get together and read the Bible one night a week. You know it, women's Bible study. So it's like backing that stuff up to go, okay, we live in a different age We don't want just a bunch of people here that have always been together. We're hoping that this can be a place of hope and celebration for people outside. We might need to rethink how we communicate the things that we're doing. So we've been doing a lot of that.
Isn't it funny how, like, it's just a natural human thing just to drift towards insider? Like, we like the security of insider, our community, our people. And it's an interesting challenge with the church, because it's the complete opposite of being a disciple of Jesus, which is about loving others. And, you know, how easy is it to love your brother? What about loving, you know, the lost, and going for the one, not the 99? Everything in Christianity is about everyone else. But we still, in churches, it's the constant battle against this drift of insider language, insider jokes, our style of whatever. And I think that's really challenged me the last few years. You know, how is my preaching or my leadership or our church more enjoyable for us? And should it be better for those who are coming in and helping? And I've had the same thing as you, just actually thinking through it and then going, man, there's so many things I didn't even see, I didn't even know. I wasn't really asking the right questions. It wouldn't be that difficult to tweak some things on a Sunday morning or whatever, and you could all of a sudden, you know, you're this open in who you're targeting, rather than, like, you know, talking to your mates and targeting these people. And it doesn't mean, it doesn't. I think I've had the challenge, Matt, to be really honest with you, of some of my paradigms around mega church have been probably inaccurate. And some of my even paradigms around what is a true Christian or what is a healthy church have been really challenged of late. And I'm thinking, man, like, I've been too narrow and I've been too concerned with my own style. And, you know, yes, there's biblical foundations, and we all know it's important to be biblical and doctrinally accurate and whatever. But, like, the methods have got to be always up for grabs, and we've always got to be flexible and changing in order to reach the people in our area. And I think the church in a lot of ways is here, and the culture is just quickly getting further and further away. And and we've spoken about this before, I think the church in a lot of ways got really caught with their pants down with same-sex marriage and things like that. I mean, it's 2010, 2015, and we're still going, like, you know, it's sin. And, like, the world's like, what? I've never even heard of that word, sin. Like, what do you mean? I just love a boy and a boy, if they love each other, they get married. Like, what do you mean? And we're still focused on judging outsiders in culture. And it's like, it's just crazy. Like, did we forget about Zacchaeus and the woman caught in adultery and, like, the criminals? I was like, it's the core of Christianity. You don't judge outside the church. Yes, you can inside, because people have made a commitment to grow together, but outside the church, it's just all grace and love.
They haven't signed up for it yet.
No, they don't even, you can't hold them to a standard they don't even agree with. They don't even believe in God or the Bible. And where they're going, you know, same-sex marriage is a sin. It's like, but that's not where the conversation's at. I think that for me, and in Australia, that was only 2017, so only 2.5 years ago. For me, it was like, man, we are just not at the races as the body of Christ with where culture is at. Like, we are just, no wonder, like, attendance, Bible literacy, just dropping. We're just not at the races. So
no, I think for me, it had to get to the point of going, the goal is to get everyone into a community of believers that they can grow in.
Yeah.
And I had to let go of the idea that was Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Because if that's not Sunday morning, then Sunday morning can be whatever I want it to be now.
Yeah.
And we can find out, like you said, the funnel to get them in those different places. And to be honest, it shouldn't be Sunday morning anyways. It probably should be a small group of people that connect all week long, growing in Christ, you know. So on Sunday morning, let's make it a party. Like, it doesn't have to be, we'll bring truth.
Yeah.
Let's make it a space.
I love it.
That our language is appropriate, that can bring them truth in a way they can even listen to it and understand it.
Yeah.
And walk with people, you know. And
so your people, but do they bring friends to church because of that? Is that happening?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I would say. So when I got here, our attendance was kind of dropping quite a bit for a number of reasons. And then after about a year, it started to tick up. And I think what's happened is it was really we were looking at a lot of changes and looking at even a new building, because we were starting to grow up until the COVID thing happened. And it's primarily because people were bringing their friends so much.
Wow.
Because they felt like it was a place that they could learn about the Bible, but in a way that they never heard about it before.
Yeah.
And all I was doing was going, every time I would make a message, I was going, what if I never heard this before in my life?
Yeah, great.
And then that would back it all up, and then I'd get them to communicate. So then, but then I would have to put in there enough also that the people that had heard about it were loving it because it was reminding them, but also pushing them deeper. But then the brand new people could go, I never thought about that in my entire life. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Really
and so, but I would say that that's the majority of the time, but then there's lots of times we're unapologetically traditional about stuff, you know. We do our best at times to explain it, but sometimes we're like, hey, this is something we've done for years and you're not going to get it until you're in it, and we're just going to do it. And then with taking offering, we're always pretty clear, like, hey, if you're just visiting, please don't give. This is the way our community that serves here worships and gives back to God. If you like to, you can, but it's not on you. We clarify it every single time because money is such an issue with the church, with people. And
so
then
what would you consider? What would you consider a committed person in your church? Like someone who's committed, who's really involved, who's really running with you. What would they be doing? What would they be like?
Well, that's where we are starting to clarify that. We were starting to clarify that.
Okay.
We were now we were getting to the tighter part of the funnel. So we realized that any type of equipping any type of equipping is probably going to have to happen on a Sunday as well.
Yeah.
Because in our area, just people don't have more than one day. And so our Thursday night is good. That's a core group, but like we wanted to do more. And so we realized Sundays would be it. So people would just have to be okay leaving the church on Sunday morning service and go to a class instead. So we kind of brought back like the old school Sunday school. You remember those days? Which church in America haven't had that in forever. Yeah. So we kind of brought that back, and we started a walk through the Bible course, new believer course. We're launching a Worldview course.
Awesome.
So that was one way for like equipping. Then we also launched these things called connect groups. And these were groups around people's already rhythms of life. Yes. So it was, I already golf. I'd love to do some golfing with people from my church.
Yeah, great.
And so we started connecting people around. We launched like, I don't know, a couple dozen of those. Yeah. Sewing, gardening. And it's just a place that people get connected to go, hey, here's a way that I can do something I'm already going to do, but alongside some people that I'm just meeting from church. So I'm already going to walk around the harbor. There's a group that I can find out when other people are on the harbor, we can do it together. And then the next thing that we're bringing in was now some form of like missional community kind of thing, but we didn't get a chance to get off the ground because of COVID, which would have been great if we could have got off the ground before COVID, but we hadn't gotten there yet. So, so those are going to be tighter groups of people. And then I was going to start spending my time more spotting leaders and training them. Yeah. Because where we're at, but yeah,
what's the next for you? Like, what's the next thing you feel God's saying to you, maybe personally in your leadership role? Like, where to from here?
Yeah. So I think part of what we've been doing that's been good for me, it's just been like really keen on making sure I'm listening to what God's trying to say. I get, and that's hard for me because I get a million ideas every day, but I have to really am trying to listen to what God wants to say. And that kind of really was on my heart for 2020. And all my friends in the area were writing series to start 2020 about clear vision and the new you, and you're going to be the best. And then I felt I felt God so clearly speak to me to do a series called The Forgotten War on spiritual warfare. And no one talks about that in our area. Yeah. And I thought, oh my gosh, no one's going to come to our church anymore. If I get up there and I start talking about evil and Satan and demons, no one's going to show up. Like, no one in this area believes in that stuff anymore. But it was like, and to start the year with that, like, this is supposed to be like new resolution series talk, you know? Yeah. And I literally, the week before my series started, I had picked a whole nother series that I was starting to study for. Yeah. And like 4 or 5 days before the weekend, I felt God, I felt like God grabbed me by the back of my neck and say, I told you to do this. Yeah, wow. And I literally, in my heart was, I don't have the words. And God's like, I'm going to give them to you. So I grabbed a couple of the books I had ordered when I thought maybe I would do something. I started reading through it. And so we started the year in a series on The Forgotten War. And I think so far for my church was the best series I ever did.
Wow.
We started growing during that series.
Yeah, wow.
And then right after that series, I felt God say do a series on prayer. And ironically, the weekend we started that series was the first weekend we couldn't meet as a church, and it was the Sunday that Trump declared it a national day of prayer.
Yeah, wow.
Oh man, you can't plan that stuff. Like you could never. And so we went into COVID, and all our churches writing in going, we never felt more equipped to face something like this.
Yeah,
I didn't plan that. They're giving me credit for it. I'm clear as day going, I told you the story. I didn't even want to do it.
Yeah.
Like this is clearly from God. So for me, it's been like that's been a real lesson to me to go, you don't know what's going to happen. Only God does. The best thing I can do is do my best to listen and take in what other people might be doing or what I'm reading, what I'm interested in, what news is, but be very keen to let that sift out. And you guys got that clear as day in your church. But for me, that was like a real wake-up call. So then when the COVID thing hit, the thing that I started hearing from God, like I'm hearing so strong right now is church planting.
Yeah.
Not from me necessarily, but I just keep hearing plant. So we're actually been working with our ministry, the Tribe. We're rethinking the whole thing, and we're just going to do a big push for people to start churches, like in their homes, wherever. Yeah. Because if the church keeps going like this, and who knows, the next flu season we're shut down again. I don't know. Who knows what's going to, once you break the ice with something like this, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I feel like there's going to be a bigger onus on people like you and I to give church back to people in some capacity.
Yeah.
And I've always been apprehensive, like, well, don't call it church, call it something else. I'm like, it's just church. It is church. I'm not going to like argue with it. It might be simple. It might be small, but that's what it is. Yeah. So like, let's not get caught with our pants down again going, like, how did this happen? No one's coming to my church. I have to figure something out to get people together in some other format, Yeah. Why not just keep pushing it for people to do it? And so I think that's my big thing right now. Is we've been, a couple of the guys from Tribe that we've worked with for years, we are retooling everything for some form of, for churches to give it to people, for people just to start doing like, hey, like, it's more and more going to be in your hands.
Yeah.
Let's plant church wherever we are, whatever we're doing,
So tell us a bit about the Tribe. Like, how is that going on now? What is it and how is it continuing?
Yeah. So that's kind of it kind of floundered for a bit, I would say. So when we came back, I was kind of driving force behind that. Mina was doing Restore School and stuff. So then I kind of asked her, like, hey, if I do this, then can you pick up all of that other stuff? And she said, yeah, sure. And so she did. But like outside of it worked and it didn't work. If I wasn't out there connecting people, reaching people, talking to people, like it kind of it stayed as a network of friends, I think. And it's done some cool stuff. And we have a little group here. We have a couple of groups here that call themselves Tribe groups, and they're Christians that are active in the church, but then also meet once a month to talk about influencing culture and stuff like that. Yeah. But it hasn't done what it could have been. Yeah. And so we're not too sure what we're doing with that right now. I mean, we still have it. I took the teaching that I did and did like a live recording at a seminar recently. They brought a video team in, they videoed it all. I'm going to be putting all that online on our Tribe site. Just give the content out to people. So I think for what we're doing right now is getting the content and getting into churches, whoever wants it. But as far as like being the organizer of people for the purpose of this, we're kind of like, we're trying to feel out how that's going to look. Yeah. And so that's why I said, well, in the meantime, why don't we just encourage people right now, since not wait for their pastor to have to do a bunch of stuff for them, but start pulling their friends together and subsidize in the meantime while they can't be meeting like they were before. Yeah, it's good. Encourage people in that way. And so
is the DTS, the Restorers DTS you're doing through YWAM, has that still been going as well?
Yeah, they were going to run 2 schools this year until this
happened. Fantastic. So
they had to cancel. They canceled the school that was running, all got sent home. And the next school that was going to run was going to be in the summer. I'm sorry. No, the January school went home. Yeah. Yeah. The January school went home. The next school is going to be in April, and that didn't start because they canceled all their schools.
Yeah. Okay. So, wow. That's great.
So then we're still trying to think through how we bring that here. But now Mina's doing real estate, and so she's kind of juggling that with we also have one tribe group in LA that meets regularly that she kind of takes care of, and so between that and we just there's not enough of us right now, so we're trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it's great. Well, you're doing an amazing job, mate. You're a great leader in the kingdom and a great pastor, and like you spread across a lot of things. It's good. It must be frustrating for you at times to have the different things you're trying to be involved in.
I think you have to be comfortable just going. Sometimes you let some things go for now. Yeah. Not sure how it's getting picked up, and that's hard for probably you and I that are more type A. Like if I'm going to put my time into it, it's going to work.
Yeah.
It might take longer, but we're not going to let it go until it's done. And so, but sometimes God's like, you just need to put that down. It was mine to begin with, and I'll tell you.
I find it very hard to not be responsible. Like my number one strength is being responsible, which is great, but like it gets in the road a lot. Like, I've had to really change in the way like I prepare sermon and teaching and stuff because of my responsibility kind of drive. Like my sermon notes have to be like 10 out of 10 and I have to think through and it's like it takes too long.
It's going to kill you.
Start just getting quicker, and the last few years I've like come up with a better methods for doing things a lot quicker. So, and just letting things go to other people's been a big thing, especially the last couple of years. We've got a great team here and that, but sometimes I think I'm more the problem. I keep saying I've just got to let you do it. You do a great job. Just do it. It's fine. I need to focus on other things, and it's hard to let things go and stuff. So we had Dr. Bill Brown.
I saw that. I saw that somewhere on social media that he was down there with you guys.
Yeah, he was here in February, which was awesome, and he loved it. So he wants to come back again next year and just keep awesome. Pushing it. We want to try and get him into some local Christian schools and stuff, because he's really got it with like Worldview, and then putting that in schools or in like colleges and training around it. And yeah, he's a brilliant guy. It really impacted people that heard it. I think a lot of people put that kind of stuff down to like, oh, that's, really academic or really lofty kind of, Christian thinkers. But when they actually heard it and got into it, they're like, oh, actually it's really evangelistic.
Everyone should know this.
Grassroots, like, reaching people, but in a way that's actually effective. And I think probably the strongest message that came through and that impacted me the most in it was just how much, proper worldview thinking is actually very empathetic to the other side. It's very much putting yourself in their shoes as a non-believer or as a Muslim or whatever. And worldview thinking is not just about the Christian worldview, it's about everyone's worldview. And so then it really gives you a lot more grace and empathy to meet people where they're at. And obviously try and encourage them towards the truth. But also it's not about them coming to the truth in Jesus Christ necessarily. It's broader than that. And it's not about coercion or forcing. It's about relationship, understanding. And so I think it challenged me another level. And but man, the worldview stuff with Colsas has totally opened my eyes up in a whole new way to, I think, Australia. What is our context? How do Aussies think? How does the gospel and church intersect with that? I've always been in the church, grown up in the church, and unfortunately, I didn't get any of this stuff in my kind of formative years. I've kind of discovered it later, which is frustrating. I wish, and that's why I'm so keen to get it into our school, to get it into our discipleship, because it just, once people have a broader worldview and understand why secular people think this and why people believe in abortion and what's actually going on behind that in their worldview, it's like, it's so empowering. We've lost, I suppose a lot of it was assumed in the church and Christianity, but the last 20, 30, 40 years, like we've lost it really. People just are so, the culture and the Bible are just so separate now that if you're not a worldview thinker, you're just not going to get what your neighbors, where they're even coming from. So
not at all. A lot of it, I think, has just been a real, it's just been a real ploy of the enemy.
Yeah.
Probably, one of the things that I realized was that probably the enemy's greatest tactic in America has been convincing America that he's dead.
Yeah.
Or that he's not alive and he's not real anymore.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden our worldview just changes to like what's right in front of me, what's only thing that I touch are the things that I value. And we don't realize that there's a whole, this is more than just what we see initially right around us, you know?
I love your heart, love all the stuff you're doing. It's great to chat to you and hear a bit about what's happening with Capo Beach and all of that. I just love this stuff. It's been really encouraging for me, especially around the Sundays, reaching people, your Thursday night discipling, putting all that together. I think that's something for me where I'm really at the moment and just trying to work through all of that stuff. And I love your heart, the Restorers tribe stuff, and you know that we love a lot of that stuff to do with.
Oh yeah, you guys. And I hear from so many people from your church. It's awesome all the time.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
It became like it was like it's one of the few groups in the world that became like family. You know.
Yeah.
It's probably been the hardest thing for me to like get off the road because not being able to be present with everyone all the time and visit people. But it's a season. So
don't be fake and phony like this plant. Like, subscribe and share this video so that the real life message can get out to the masses.